It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday, the kind that begins with a burned piece of toast, a missing sock, and a coffee that goes cold before the first sip. For Daniel Harper, mornings were a carefully balanced circus act. As a single dad, every day started early, loud, and chaotic, with his 7-year-old daughter Lily insisting on wearing a superhero cape to school and his 4-year-old son Max negotiating breakfast like a tiny lawyer. By the time Daniel finally strapped them into the car and dropped them off, his brain was already running on fumes. All he wanted was to survive the workday, get back home, and maybe enjoy 5 minutes of silence before bedtime chaos began again. Daniel worked as a project coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm, a job he was grateful for even if it came with constant deadlines and a boss who expected perfection. His boss, Victoria Reynolds, was known around the office as sharp, intimidating, and always 10 steps ahead. She wasn't cruel, but she was precise, professional, and not someone you wanted to disappoint. Daniel respected her deeply, maybe even admired her, but he kept things strictly professional. He had no time for complications. Between parent-teacher meetings and bedtime stories, his life was already full. That morning, Daniel was running late. Traffic was worse than usual, Max had spilled juice all over the back seat, and his phone buzzed relentlessly with work notifications. While stopped at a red light, Daniel glanced at a message from Victoria asking if the client proposal had been emailed yet. He sighed, voice texting his reply without much thought, his mind juggling 1,000 things at once. Yes, I sent it last night. Let me know if you want to go over it later, he said quickly. He hit send without checking the screen. What Daniel didn't know was that his phone, in its infinite and often cruel wisdom, had decided to make a creative edit. Instead of "go over it later," the message that landed on Victoria Reynolds' phone read something very different. A single word had changed, turning a professional sentence into something awkwardly suggestive. It wasn't explicit, but it was unmistakably inappropriate in a workplace context. Daniel arrived at the office unaware of the digital chaos he had just unleashed. He went about his morning routine, greeting co-workers, opening spreadsheets, and mentally preparing for the afternoon meeting. It wasn't until he noticed the strange looks that things began to feel off. A couple of colleagues avoided eye contact. One person coughed awkwardly when he walked by. Another gave him a look that was half shock, half amusement. Then his phone buzzed. It was Victoria. Daniel, can you come see me when you have a moment? No emoji. No punctuation beyond the period. His stomach dropped. Inside her office, Victoria sat behind her desk, posture perfectly composed, expression unreadable. Daniel felt like a teenager called into the principal's office. She held up her phone and turned the screen toward him. Did you mean to send this? She asked calmly. Daniel's heart stopped. He read the message. Once. Twice. A third time. His face flushed hot as the reality crashed down on him. He stammered, words tripping over each other as he apologized, explaining the voice-to-text mistake, the chaotic morning, the kids, the traffic, the everything. He expected anger. He expected embarrassment so intense it might swallow him whole. Instead, Victoria sighed. You're not the first person Autocorrect has betrayed, she said, placing the phone face down. But you might be the most creative example. Relief washed over him so fast he almost laughed. She told him to be more careful, reminded him about professionalism, and then, to his surprise, asked if everything was okay at home. The question caught him off guard. No boss had ever asked him that before. He admitted, cautiously, that things were busy. That being a single parent wasn't easy. That some days he felt like he was always one step behind. Victoria nodded. I figured, she said. You do good work, Daniel. Don't let one message make you panic. That should have been the end of it. An embarrassing office story, something that would fade into legend and eventually be laughed about over drinks. But life, as Daniel was learning, rarely followed simple scripts. That evening, after dinner and homework and the nightly struggle to get Max to brush his teeth, Daniel finally collapsed onto the couch. His phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a work message. It was Victoria. Hi Daniel. This is probably unusual, but I wanted to check in. You seemed really shaken today. Daniel stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. After a moment, he typed back a polite reply, thanking her and assuring her everything was fine. A few minutes later, another message appeared. I'm nearby. Would you mind if I stopped by for a quick hello? Strictly professional. Daniel froze. Before he could overthink it, the doorbell rang. Standing on his porch was Victoria Reynolds, not in her sharp office attire, but in casual clothes, hair down, looking far more human than he'd ever seen her at work. She smiled, a little awkwardly. I promise I'm not here to talk about spreadsheets, she said. Inside, the atmosphere was entirely different from the office. Toys littered the floor. Crayon drawings decorated the fridge. Lily peeked around the corner, curious, while Max proudly announced that he had a dinosaur collection. Victoria knelt down, greeting them warmly, genuinely interested. Daniel watched in disbelief as his intimidating boss effortlessly charmed his kids. Once the children were settled with a cartoon, Victoria and Daniel sat at the kitchen table. She explained that she'd been a single parent once 2 years ago, before her career took off. That she recognized the exhaustion in his eyes. That the message that morning, while inappropriate, had also been a reminder that everyone was human behind their job titles. They talked for hours. About work, yes, but also about life, about mistakes, about the strange ways technology had a habit of exposing our most vulnerable moments. The tension that had existed between boss and employee softened into something warmer, something rooted in mutual understanding. Nothing crossed a line. Nothing needed to. The real story wasn't about the autocorrect mistake or the awkward message. It was about connection. About how a small, ridiculous error had opened the door to honesty, empathy, and an unexpected bond. When Victoria finally stood to leave, she paused at the door. For what it's worth, she said with a faint smile, I'm glad you sent that message. Not because of what it said, but because of what it led to. After she left, Daniel sat alone in the quiet house, the weight of the day settling into something softer. He realized that sometimes, disasters weren't disasters at all. Sometimes, they were just messy beginnings to better stories.